Verbal or life.
So, promise made, promise kept. Donald Trump went ahead with the American plan that they've been talking about for years. American president always talking about doing this, destroying the nuclear weapons that Iran might be producing. And Trump actually did it. The man said to give him 2 weeks, but the man is a genius. Did it yesterday. Didn't even wait for the 2 weeks. Gave himself time. Nobody snitched. Yo, shout out to Donald Trump because promise made, promise kept. No more empty promises and president doing nothing. So are we at war with Iran? I mean, what does it mean that we went ahead and bombed them? What's going to happen next? I think all the intellectuals are scared, talking about, oh my God, they're going to bomb us, but not Trump. Trump is not scared. He got this. He says he got the best military on earth. Therefore, they better not even think about bombing us. Let's take a look at Sunday morning futures, giving a report as to what's going to happen next. By the way, welcome to Verbal on Live. My name is Noel. Over here, bringing you guys the news and the celebration because Trump needs to be celebrated. The man isn't celebrated enough. Let's take a look at what's going to happen next.
Good morning. Today, breaking news, an historic day for the United States, Israel, and the world. The U.S. bombs Iran. The commander-in-chief, President Donald Trump, authorizing the U.S. military to strike 3 of Iran's most lethal nuclear sites last night. We know of no human casualties, but Iran's nuclear infrastructure appears to be badly damaged in the biggest B-2 stealth bomber action we have ever seen, including...
And good thing that it wasn't no snitches. Nobody came out and said it. Nobody told Iran to watch out. America is coming. Nobody saw this coming. So for him to do it, again, shout out to Donald Trump. In the heat of the night, nobody saw this coming until he made the announcement like, we did it, everybody. We took him out. Job well done. Check it out.
Obliterating Iran's most significant uranium-enriched Fordo site built underground in the mountains in Iran. Here's President Trump last night.
Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill.
Nobody better say death to America. That's it. It's one thing that Trump talks a lot, but then he carries through. So whatever promises he made, they're going to happen. This is just showing that. The fact that the man makes promise and goes through with it. That's not normal for politicians. Politicians always make promises, and then at the end of their term, they say, well, we didn't get that done. Sorry. But not Trump, man. He got 4 years, and he's going to get things done. Finally, we have a grown-ass man in office.
Joining me now in his first interview since the U.S. action is the Secretary of State of America, Secretary Marco Rubio. Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here. Are we now at war with Iran?
No, we're not. This is not a war against Iran. This is very simple. 67 days ago, the president of the United States sent the Iranians a letter, and it said, you're not going to have nuclear weapons. You're not going to have a militarized nuclear.
And it wasn't an empty letter. It was a straight up letter giving you guys a warning. He gave them a warning. Like, yo, you're not doing this. They thought it was a bluff. So here we go.
Program. Let's negotiate. I want to do this diplomatically. I want to do this peacefully. They tried to play him along the way they've played every American president for the last 35 years.
Yep.
And, the president told them, if we don't get a deal, which is what he wanted, then I'll have to handle it differently. And that's what he did last night. He handled it differently. But that was an Iranian choice. We didn't make that choice. They did. By playing games with Donald Trump, they made a huge mistake. And President Trump acted last night. And I think the world today is safer and more stable than it was 24 hours ago.
We got to say it. Thank you, Trump, for having the balls to go forward with your promises and not being scared. Because this country is full of elites scared to death. Now talking about we are about to go to war, but not Trump, man. He ain't scared. Let's go.
Oh, and a bunch of these countries putting out statements condemning us. Privately, they all agree with us that this needed to be done. They got to do what they got to do for, their own public relations purposes. But the only people in the world that are unhappy about what happened in Iran last night is the regime in Iran.
Have you heard from anyone in Iran, and are you expecting retaliation?
Well, if they retaliate, it'll be the worst mistake they've ever made.
Yeah.
Look, we can fly in and out of Iran at will. We went in last night. The president sent our military forces from halfway across the world, went in, conducted this operation, left. Not a shot was fired against us. They didn't even know what had happened. By the time we left, the planes were out of their airspace before they finally started realizing they'd been hit. So it would be a terrible mistake if Iran retaliates. So
talk about it, let them know how it happened. And I can't wait to see the videotape of Donald Trump sitting down, watching everything through TV, celebrating this attack that they didn't even know what hit them. By the time they realized they got hit, planes already gone. No Americans got shot. Talk about it, man. Trump is a genius.
So, but that's not our goal. We are not declaring war on Iran. We're not looking for war on Iran. But if they attack us, then I think we have capabilities they haven't even seen yet. It would be a terrible mistake on their part. And frankly, it's not what we hope for or wish. What we want now is to ensure that Iran never has nuclear weapons. If what they want is a civil nuclear program where they have power plants like a lot of other countries in the world have, they can do that. That's the deal that's been offered to them. They rejected it. They played us. They tried to play us, I should say. They wouldn't respond to our offers. They disappeared for 10 days. And now, the president had to take action as a response.
And the response?
It is so rare for Americans to take action after they make a threat or after they make a promise. Finally, we got somebody who actually says something and expect actions or expect the other country to follow through, or this happens. Total war.
Included strategic ambiguity. Can you walk us through the plan in terms of how it was deceptive, not allowing the Iranians to understand what was really taking place?
Well, ultimately, when we do these things, it's because we care about the safety and security of our troops, of our airmen, and all those who are supporting these missions. So, obviously, the element of surprise is important in military tactics. In this particular, now, I don't think the Iranians or anyone should have been under any mystery. The president said very clearly, we have 60 days to make progress on a deal, and if we don't, I'm going to deal with it differently. But in terms of what people call deception and surprise and things of this nature, the core of that is not the success. The mission was going to be successful no matter what. The core of that was protecting our servicemen and women who are in harm's way and conducting that mission. That's the most.
Trump should get a peace prize for this, man. Doing all of this and no snitching. Nothing came out. There was no warnings out there. He made the promises and then carried through with no snitches that got anybody hurt. Man, strategic defense, man. The man is a genius.
Important part. And they went in, they did what they needed to do with precision and skill that no other military in the world can do, and they left. And they were well outside of Iranian airspace before the regime even realized what had happened. And that was the goal here, and that was achieved. These planes came from halfway across the world, and no one saw them coming. And that's a huge credit to Pete Hegseth and General Kane and General Kurilla and obviously our commander-in-chief for pulling that off.
Well, the president said in a post recently that he knows where the supreme leader is hiding, but that he was not ready to take him out yet. What can you tell us about your expectations with regard to regime change in Iran?
Well, that's certainly not the goal of what we're working on here. The goal is stated very clearly in a letter the president sent the supreme leader about 67 days ago. And in a letter, he said, you're not going to have a nuclear weapon. Let's negotiate peacefully a solution. We can make a really good deal that's good for Iran, good for.
So he told them, he gave them a warning, and that's how warnings work. You get a warning. If you don't come through, then suffer the consequences. That's how it works. I don't know why Americans forgot all about this, talking about the government, they make promises and never carry through. But not Trump, man. He came in here, made one promise, you don't follow through. It is what it is. It's on.
For America, good for the world. If you don't, however, then I'm going to have to deal with this differently. The Iranians didn't like the letter. They didn't respond to it. They ultimately entered into fake negotiations and tried to play him along. In essence, they thought they could do with President Trump what they've done with presidents in the past and get away with it. Yeah. And they found out last night that they can't. And the world found out last night that you can't. And that's important, not just on this issue, but
I want to see what other country is going to try to test Donald Trump. to see if Donald Trump's come through with his promises. I bet you nobody's going to test this man. When he says he's going to do something, you believe him. It's going to happen. Finally, a grown man in office.
It's for so many other issues happening around the world. I think that what we are seeing is that this is a president that tells you what he's going to do, and then he does it.
Yep.
And I think that to a lot of people, including the Iranian regime, is shocking.
Yep.
What are your expectations in terms of Iran's nuclear capabilities today?
Well, they're certainly degraded. Look, at the end of the day, if Iran is committed to becoming a nuclear weapons power, I do think it puts the regime at risk. I really do. I think it would be the end of the regime if they tried to do that. It's certainly been set back from a technical standpoint, not just due to what we did last night, but obviously the Israelis have done incredible work in advance as well. But ultimately, they have to make a decision. It's a very simple decision. If what they want is nuclear reactors so they can have electricity, there are so many so many other countries in the world that do that, and they don't have to enrich their own uranium. They can do that. But if what they want is a secret program buried in the mountain where no one can see it and inspectors can only come when they say they can come, if that's what they want, then they're going to have big problems, because this is a dangerous, violent, radical regime. Not the Iranian people. We have no problem. We didn't hit Iranian people last night. We hit nuclear facilities. And if what they want is some secret program that looks nothing like the civil nuclear programs around the world, it looks a lot like you're trying to build a bomb, they're going to continue to have problems, not just with us, but with many other countries in the world.
Promise made, promise kept. Again, don't test this man. Trump gives you one warning. Why would you not take him serious? He's not the regular president. This man just went ahead with those bombs. And if they want to escalate, it's going to be an ugly war, because we got the best weapons, period. And that's it. Not afraid of saying it, putting it out there. I dare you to test this man.
Problems like what? What do you mean?
Like the problems they're facing right now. Listen, why do we have bases in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait and Qatar and UAE? All of those bases are there to help protect those countries from Iran. Why did Hezbollah exist? Because of Iran. What does Hamas exist? Because of Iran. How do the Houthis exist? Because of Iran. Who built the IEDs that maimed and killed American soldiers in Iraq? Iran. They're behind every problem in this region. They are the sole source of instability in the entire Middle East, and the world's been paying a price for this for 40-something years. Imagine those people having a nuclear weapon, just one nuclear weapon, or even the capability to being on the threshold of having a nuclear weapon. That's what the world was facing. That is unacceptable. President Trump did the world a favor last night, and now Iran should sort of wake up. The Iranian regime should wake up and say, okay.
Look at that. The whole world owes Trump a favor. Oh, thank you. This man just said, I'm trying to save the world. This is safety on another level, man. Shout out to Trump, man.
If we really want nuclear energy in our country, there's a way to do it. That offer's still there. We're prepared to talk to them tomorrow and start working on that. Steve Witkoff has traveled extensively around the world trying to reach that deal with them, but they play too many games. They play way too many games, and now they found out.
The president has said many times no nuclear weapons, but the ultimate goal also happens to be no biological weapons, chemicals, no drones, no proxy warfare. Do you believe that the Iranians will follow that and you'll achieve the ultimate goal of success here?
Again, they better follow that. That's it. That was just the first hit, and it was hard. They didn't even see the planes coming. Talk about it. It was a strong hit. So if they want to escalate things, it's going to be ugly for them. All right. No more being afraid of Iran. Oh, my God, they might strike us. No, they even think about doing that, they might get wiped out. And not the people. The people in office is the one they're threatening. The people in charge. Let's go.
Long term.
Well, I don't know what they're going to decide to do next. If they're being rational, I think they realize, if what they want is a country that has a nuclear energy program, they can have that. I mean, many countries around the world, I don't like the regime, but we're not into the regime change business here. We're into the safety and security of the United States business. Yeah. So that's a choice they'll have to make. I hope they're being rational in their decision making. But I think the most important thing I hope they realize is the game is up. Okay, they have played the world for 40-something years with these nuclear talks and this, delaying things. They got a crazy deal out of John Kerry when he was Secretary of State under the Obama administration, where they got billions of dollars. And by the way, agreed to something that allowed them to continue to build their missile capacity and sponsor terrorism. They've been playing the world for 40-something years. They're not going to play President Trump. And they found out last night that when he says he's going to do something, he'll do it. Yeah. And he doesn't want to do it. It's not his first choice, but it's the only choice. That's the only choice.
Finally, we have a grown man in office. I think I said it like 3 times already. Finally, a man that makes a promise and sees it through with no fear. That's it. The fear that Iran, oh my God, we should be scared of them. Those days are over. All right? We're talking. They better listen. Otherwise, the bombs are going to keep coming. How about that? Let's see how tough they're going to get with the United States. They can get tough with other countries in the regions, but not with us, man. They don't have the capability of flying to the other side of the world and trying to attack us. I mean, in my opinion, they don't have the capability. Let's see.
The Iranian regime left us because they play too many games. They use diplomacy to hide behind and obfuscate and think they can buy themselves time. They think they're cute. They're not cute. And they're not going to get away with this stuff. Not under President Trump.
The Europeans have been feckless pretty much throughout this conflict in the last several weeks. What are your expectations for our partners and allies in Europe?
Well, look, I think the Europeans, particularly the Germans, the French, and the Brits, have made very clear that Iran cannot have nuclear weapons. In fact, I think the French, for the first time, have kind of leaned forward even more and said they can't even have.
And it's crazy because they say they cannot do it, but they don't act upon it. They don't do any actions. They don't do anything. The United States is the only one that says they cannot have a nuclear bomb and actually acts on it and actually threaten them with action, not with just words.
Have an enrichment capability. There are existing sanctions under the old JCPOA that we're no longer a part of, but they remain a part of. Iran is in complete violation. Okay, and so those 3 countries have to make a decision, I know later than October of this year, whether to put sanctions back on Iran, snap them back. And we encourage them to continue to press them on that front because that's another set of pressure. So, obviously, these are allies and partners we work with closely on a bunch of issues around the world. And I think they have in their hands a very powerful piece of leverage on the Iranian regime, which is the snapback provisions under the previous JCPOA. And I think so far they've been very tough and strong on that, and we encourage them to continue to do so and to continue to tell the Iranian regime. I keep saying Iranian regime because it's not the people we have a quarrel with. The Iranian regime, they've consistently messaged them, and we're grateful for it, that the solution to this problem is negotiate directly with the Americans. That's another thing. They don't even talk to us directly. We always have to have a middleman. They want to pass messages and notes like we're in 3rd grade. We're not doing that anymore.
They think they slick. They just don't want to get straight to what we're talking about, get straight to the conversation. Just going around what really needs to happen, which is them getting rid of the nuclear bombs. So finally, a grown man stepping up and saying, y'all stop the games. You don't want to stop? Check it out. Blow them apart.
Direct negotiations. Let's talk about how we peacefully resolve this problem. The Europeans have pressured them on that point, and we encourage them to continue to do so and are grateful that they've been doing that so far.
What about our allies in the Middle East right now? Interesting to note that we have not heard from any of the proxies of Iran. No comment from the Iranians so far. No comment from Hezbollah or the Houthis. What are your reactions there, as well as our allies in the Middle East? President Trump, of course, using his first trip internationally to go and strengthen relations with our friends in the Middle East.
Well, we made clear that any of these proxies attack America, we're not only going to deal with the proxies, but we're also going to pin it on Iran. We know who's behind these. That's another thing they do. They create these little groups like the Shia militias in Iraq and Syria, and then they hide behind them and pretend it's not them. We know it's them, including the Houthis, by the way. So Iran will be held responsible for the actions of these groups. In terms of the other countries in the region, look, I think that we've worked very cooperatively with them. The president just had a great visit to Saudi Arabia, to the UAE, and to Qatar. Very productive. But I just ask and remind everybody, the only reason we have U.S. bases in the region, the only reason we have an air base in Qatar, an air base in UAE, an air base in Saudi Arabia, is because they are afraid that Iran will attack them. And they want us there to help defend them. And so, if Iran wasn't...
It's like the United States got to be the police for the world, making sure that everybody is playing by the rules and not getting out of hands and throwing nuclear bombs. We got to help everybody. So if Iran doesn't want to negotiate with us, the police officers in charge of the world, hey, that was a great attack.
And the threat, we wouldn't need those bases there. So these countries fully recognize the threat that Iran poses. That's why they want us there, to help defend their oil fields and their infrastructure, or help them defend themselves. And if the Iranian regime was no longer a threat, we wouldn't need to have any of these bases in the region. We wouldn't need to have any American service people in the region. But that's the state of affairs right now.
Look at all the countries around Iran. All of them could have done something about it, right? But no, they waited for the United States to send in airplanes and take care of the problem. Now, Iran, are you going to be able to come to America to destroy us? I don't think so.
So these countries understand what Iran is and what the regime is, and they get it. They understand it.
How long have these plans been in place to take out the nuclear facilities?
Well, the president makes the ultimate decision, and look, in terms of plans, I mean, we have all sorts of contingency plans for all sorts of possible strikes all over the world. Once the president says, okay, work up options for me, they obviously go back and, refine those. And then there are multiple points along the way in which the president has decisions to make about go or no go. And it really comes right up to 10 minutes before the bombs are actually dropped. So the president retains, as commander in chief, full control of these operations. But we have incredibly capable military.
But from what I understand, America has been working on those bombs for years, like just in case bombs, just in case they had to do this. So it's not an overnight thing. Those bombs were created to destroy those nuclear facilities. So they've been working on it for a while. All the presidents have all been scared of doing anything. Finally, Trump said, we're going to use those bombs, and here we go. And actually went forward with it.
People in our country. The operation yesterday was extraordinary, really extraordinary. Obviously, there are elements of it that will not ever be publicly shared, but suffice it to say that there is no country in the world that can do what the United States did last night through our incredible military led by our commander-in-chief. And I think a lot of credit goes out to Pete Hegseth, our defense secretary, did a phenomenal job of managing this process. And obviously, all the way down to the airmen and others who conducted this operation. It was flawless. It was perfect. It was executed with extraordinary skill, and I think demonstrates the capabilities we have, which no other country in the world has anything remotely close to this.
Secretary, what does the road ahead look like from a military standpoint in the U.S. regarding Iran over the near term?
Well, we've achieved. Yeah, we've achieved our objective. Our objective was to severely degrade and or destroy 3 nuclear sites inside of Iran. One of them had 60% enriched uranium, 60%. Remember, you only need like 3.67% for a nuclear power plant. You only need 20% enriched, very small quantities for like medical isotopes and that kind of thing. The only countries in the world that have anything close to 60% enriched uranium are countries that have nuclear weapons. They have stored 60% enriched uranium in one facility there called Esfahan. They were threatening to create even more of it. And then they had all these centrifuges that were capable of enriching up to weapons grade at 90%, buried in mountains, I know, but it's all for peaceful purposes. Give me a break. Everybody gets it. Unfortunately, they've been able to get away with that game for a long time.
They were just talking BS. Stringing everybody along, knowing what they were doing, getting ready for war, preparing themselves, and everybody pretending like, well, it may not be bad. Like they were waiting for a hit to say that, I think we got to get rid of those nuclear bombs that they got. Trump didn't wait. He acted on it.
Objectives last night. We hit 3 nuclear-related sites controlled by the Iranian regime. And now what happens next will depend on what Iran does next and the regime does next. If they attack us, it would be a terrible mistake on their part. There are they are completely vulnerable. They don't control their own airspace. They can't protect their own airspace. They can't even protect their own leaders. So I think it would be a big mistake if they did anything against us. But look, they'll have to make that decision, and the president will respond accordingly and decisively. But no one after last night should be under any illusions. When Donald Trump says he's going to do something, when the president says this president says he's going to do something, he's not just wasting words. He means it.
He's a grown man making grown man promises. This ain't no if or maybe. This is my man. I spoke to you once. You ain't going to get a second and third opportunity to do anything. So I said to get rid of those nuclear facilities. You didn't? Okay, here we go. let's make it happen.
So was it fair to say they were 1 week away from having a nuclear weapon? And is that all destroyed at this point? Is that gone?
I think it's fair to say they have everything you need to make a nuclear weapon. Everything. They have the enrichment capability. They have highly enriched uranium in sufficient quantities to make at least 9 or 10 bombs. All they have to do is spend a couple days enriching it from 60 to 90%. We're certain they have a weapons design. They have mid-range missiles. They have short-range missiles that they could put warheads on. And by the way, they claim to have a space program. It's not a space program. Iran's not going to the moon. They have a space program because they're trying to develop ICBMs, long-range rockets that could one day reach the United States the way North Korea can already reach the United States with their ICBMs.
So they don't have it yet. So they can't even make threats, or we don't have to worry that they're going to send a bomb over here. They're not capable. So that's one thing that you never hear in the news. The fact that Iranians could say kill Americans, destroy Americans, but they're not capable, right? They don't have the utilities or the weapons that will get here. So
that's what they're working on. They have all the pieces in place to have a nuclear weapon. All that's missing is flipping the switch. But in terms of all things you need, all the structures, all the science, all of that, they had it all in place. Now, not so much. And that's why we did the world a great favor. Or we would all wake up one day in less than a decade in a world where radical Shia clerics control nuclear weapons capable of reaching not just the Middle East, but all of Europe, and potentially the east coast of the United States. That is an unacceptable risk. There's no way we were leaving that for future generations.
Secretary, final question here. Do you expect Iran to move to close the Strait of Hormuz to try to disrupt oil transportation across the world?
Well, I encourage the Chinese government in Beijing to call them about that because they heavily depend on the Straits of Hormuz for their oil. If they do that, it'll be another terrible mistake. It's economic suicide for them if they do it. And we retain options to deal with that. But other countries should be looking at that as well. It would hurt other countries' economies a lot worse than ours. It would be, I think, a massive escalation that would merit a response, not just by us, but from others. So, look, they're going to say what they need to say. You know, these are the things that need to happen for their own internal.
They're going to make empty threats, empty promises that they cannot follow through on them. Right. And with the American intelligence, we're watching them, taking a look and studying what they have available. Because that's on another level. If you study what they got available, it's one thing to make a promise or to make a threat. But if you're not capable of doing it, then it's an empty threat. Let's be real here.
Politics and so forth. But in the end, we're going to judge them by the actions that they take moving forward. We had 3 objectives. We struck those 3 objectives with decisive force. And that was the point of this mission. And that's what we achieved. What happens next will depend on what they do. They want to negotiate. We're ready to negotiate. They want to get cute and do things that are dangerous. We have responses available that are devastating.
Yeah.
Secretary, was China complicit? We know that jets flew into Iran. We don't know what were on those jets.
No, we don't have any evidence that the Chinese were involved in anything other than perhaps trying to get Chinese nationals out of Iran.
Okay. Secretary, thank you very much for joining us. Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
That's what's up, man. Promise made, promise kept, right? And Trump is going around making promises and talking to everybody. Anybody that's going against Trump, he's following through on those promises. All the illegal migrants in America, they're getting deported. He already said he's going to do it, and he's doing it. All right? And now with Iran, he told them, no, do not build your facilities. They didn't follow through, so they had this coming to them. 3 facilities blown up. Man, shout out to the Guard.
Thank you, sir. We have informed analysis coming up with Colonel Derek Harvey, formerly on the National Security Council, as well as Victoria Coates, as well as reaction from congressional leaders coming up. But first, the issue of potential retaliation, with the FBI picking up surveillance of Iranian operatives in sleeper cells here in America, even before this attack. More than 400 terrorism encounters occurred in the past 4 years of the Biden administration's wide open border policy, including hundreds of foreigners on the U.S. terrorist.
And nobody knows why Biden did that, why he opened up the borders and let everybody in. Or whoever was with Biden did it. Because we all know it was the auto pen that signed all of this and let the borders wide open. And now look at what Trump got to deal with.
Watch list encountered while trying to enter the country illegally, and millions of others seen on surveillance cameras getting away into America. Joining me now with that angle is the White House border czar, Tom Homan. Tom, thank you so much for joining us. Can you assess that issue, particularly how many Iranians are in the country that are in sleeper cells trying to do bad to America right now?
Thank you, Tom.
Well, look, you and I have talked about this many times. I said the last 4 years, my biggest concern was this open border was the biggest national security vulnerability this country's ever seen. So I pulled numbers this morning just from a CBP under Joe Biden. There was 1,272 nationals of Iran released in the country between OFO and the Border Patrol. And you compare that to the Trump administration, zero. Right, zero releases. And right now, because of President Trump's leadership, we have the most secure border in my lifetime, most secure border in the history of this nation. So we have a secure border. That was President Trump's big win on securing this nation. So we're not releasing people in this country, especially interest aliens aren't crossing that border undetected. But under Joe Biden, we had over 10 million people cross that border. But my biggest concern from day one, beyond the fentanyl, beyond the sex trafficking women and children, were the 2 million known gotaways. Over 2 million people crossed that border. We don't know who they are, where they came from, because they got away, because Border Patrol is so overwhelmed with the humanitarian crisis that Biden created that over 2 million people crossed the border and got away. That is my biggest concern, and that's what created the biggest national security vulnerability this country's ever seen.
That's crazy. Just giving Trump more homework or more things to take care of. And now more and more people are waking up and noticing that these illegal migrants are just endangering everybody, all communities. So everybody got to say something. I mean, only the elites, the rich, are not saying anything because they don't live in those communities that are being affected. All right? Regular people are being affected, losing jobs, or, hey, they even got crazy things happening to the women and children in these communities.
And you have that on surveillance, seeing people get away. Do you have a sense of where they went?
No, intelligence community under President Trump has been on this since day one. What gives me any comfort at all is that you don't have Christopher Wray there. You got Kash Patel there. You don't have Alejandro Mayorkas there anymore. You got Kristi Noem, and you certainly don't have Kamala Harris as a border czar. So President Trump brought a great team, been on this since day one. Do we know where every one of the 2 million are? No. We don't know who they all are. We don't know why they're here, where they came from. But we do know Border Patrol intelligence for the last 4 years, they found prayer mats south of the border. They found identification from people from Iran, Turkey, Uzbekistan, Syria, south of the border. So we know that some terrorists have crossed that border. We'd be a fool to think zero cross. The thing is, though, we got President Trump as a commander-in-chief who's put all resources on that. That's why President Trump from day one, ICE operations, despite what the left media says, he has been focused on national security threats and public safety threats. And between ICE and the Bureau, we've removed thousands of national security threats because of President Trump's leadership on this.
Yes, that's right. Tom, thank you very much. Tom Homan joining us. Stay with us. We'll be right back. News this morning after the U.S. strikes Iran's nuclear sites last night, and President Trump threatens more to come unless Iran abandons all plans for a nuclear bomb. After the U.S. destroyed 3 of Iran's most lethal nuclear sites last night, Colonel Derek J. Harvey is a retired U.S. Army colonel. He served in President Trump's first term at the National Security Council, and he's also previously served on the staff of former Congressman and House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes. The colonel joins me right now. Sir, thanks very much for being here. What is your reaction?
Well, the strike was very successful from what I understand, and that is, I think, the extent of the U.S. role. But this does not end the conflict. This is really a conflict between Israel and Iran, and the international community and the United States have interests. Iran is digging in its heels and is refusing to agree to really serious negotiations about ending their nuclear program. And they have limited ability to alter the trajectory at this point. They can threaten, and if they do strike American interests or other interests, I think the ramifications would be dramatic for them. Secondly, Israel, has its own strategic objectives, and what not just the nuclear issue at this point, but what they have learned from being pummeled by Iranian long-range missiles, hypersonic missiles, drones that strike their country. They cannot, I think, tolerate the existence of those types of capabilities going forward. So that's another issue that's going to have to be addressed.
It seems to me that at this point, President Trump is setting all the terms. The negotiation is over.
Yeah.
No more negotiation. Do you think Iran will respond appropriately?
I think they are stubborn and intransigent, and they are going to try to extend this with threats. We'll see if they actually strike out at American targets or other targets. It would be very difficult for them to go after the Straits of Hormuz. As Secretary Rubio mentioned, China is relying on getting a lot of tankers out of the Persian Gulf right now. They're all queued up, and they rely on oil, not just from Iran, but from the other countries in the region.
Incredible to see the discipline out of the White House in this action. What do you want to say about the deception campaign? And
well,
the
I think the president and his team, first, maintained tremendous operational security. There were no leaks. They engaged in a 60-day negotiating period, and then the campaign started by Israel, and then he offered up to 2 weeks. The Iranian response was, again, obstinate and refused to engage. Therefore, they struck quickly, and the president gave them.
The fact that they refuse to engage is basically saying, we don't care what you're saying. We don't care what you're promising. We know you're not going to carry through. And Trump was the first president brave enough to go ahead and carry through what he said. He's trying to talk to them and they don't want to talk. Well, then check out what's going to happen. And he took those facilities out. Man, respect to the grown man in office, Donald Trump.
Time. But all along, I think the president understood where this was going to go. And I'll just go back a moment here, Maria. When he went to the Middle East on his trip, he was building, prosperity and peace. And this is peace through strength. He's got two parallel thoughts in his mind, I think, that are very important. And he wants to end this problem in the region of Iran being a strategic problem for the region that entangles us. It's bad for the Iranian people, it's bad for the region, and it's bad for the international community. And I think he understands that. And we can't shift to China until we cease this entanglement in the Middle East.
Understood. Thank you so much, Derek Harvey. We will have you back soon with further analysis.
The whole world got to thank Trump. That's it. He got rid of those nuclear facilities. Let's all get together and just say thank you, Trump. That's what the rest of the countries around Iran should be saying. Because the man carried through with his promises. No more American empty promises. American is not stupid anymore.
Says Colonel Derek Harvey. There are still hundreds of thousands of Americans in Israel who were stranded there for the past week, with Israeli airspace all but shut down. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has done many efforts to get people home, more than 1,500 people back to America. The governor joins me right now. Governor, thank you for being here. Your reaction to what has taken place.
Well, President Trump's policy has been consistent and correct that Iran cannot have nuclear weapons. And his actions last night put force behind that policy in a way that I think is going to be very beneficial for the U.S. interest and in the broader world. Think about it. Under President Biden, Iran was on a surefire path to a nuclear weapon. Now, thanks to President Trump's actions, Iran going nuclear is a pipe dream at this point. So it was the correct decision. It was expertly executed, and hats off to everybody that's been involved in that. And I think that we understood when the first war broke out with Israel and Iran, this was going to have implications for our country one way or another. And in Florida, we knew, just as a matter of fact, we had a lot of our residents that were over in Israel as these ballistic missiles were raining down. Ben Gurion Airport, as you mentioned, was shut down. And so how do you get these people back? Now, we rescued many people after the Hamas attacks on October 7th, 2023. We've also rescued Floridians and other Americans from instability in Haiti. And so we sprung into action. We were able to get 1,500 during the first week out of Israel. And we're now running flights. We've had hundreds of people repatriated back to Florida. I was in Tampa the other day greeting people in the wee hours of the morning. And it's a difficult situation. If you're a college student over there studying abroad, or if you're there with your family, all of a sudden you're in this midst of a situation which is very, very dicey. So those operations are ongoing. We're going to continue to help rescue our fellow Floridians and fellow Americans when they need help.
Thank you for those flights from Tel Aviv to Tampa. Very effective. Governor, when you were in the House of Representatives, you also studied the Iran conflict. Do you expect retaliation?
No.
Well, Iran has always been an asymmetric threat, Maria, in the sense that that was one of the reasons the nuclear problem was such a big issue, because they're militant Islamists. And so using nuclear weapons, even if there was a devastating response against them, that may be an inducement for them to use it, given their radical ideology. I would imagine a conventional response is not going to be very effective against the United States. They are not a match for us there. But I do think that they will try to work through their proxies to deliver more terrorism in the region. And as you mentioned earlier in your show, President Biden let in massive numbers of people during his administration. Are we to believe that Iran, who they view us as the great Satan, that they just didn't want to take advantage of that? I think it's probably the case that they did. So I think it'll be more of an asymmetric response. I don't think that they can match the United States conventionally.
Governor, thank you very much. We'll be watching your work in Florida. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
You know what? We're like watching a real life movie. I want to see what Iran is going to try to do. It better not be violent. It better not be like any planes or anything like that, or trying to hurt Americans. Because if they go to war, I don't see how possibly they can win against the greatest threat or the greatest nuclear, well, not nuclear, well, the greatest army in the world is the American army. So they don't have a chance.
Now, the response from Congress. Next, we'll be right back. Strikes Iran, the commander-in-chief, President Trump, directed the U.S. military to carry out massive precision strikes on the three key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. Joining me now is Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson with the reaction from the Senate.
I want to see what the Senate and the Congress, mainly the Democrats, are going to be complaining about it and talk fear, how we might die because we want to go up against Iran. Giving no credit to the Trump that's going to keep us safe. They just want to put fear in people. But let's see. This is a GOP senator. Let's see what he got to say.
Senator, thanks very much for joining us. What is your reaction?
Good morning, Maria. Well, it's unfortunate that the Iranian Ayatollahs made America their enemy. They've been at war with us since 1979 when they took over our embassy and held 444 Americans hostage. So they've been killing American soldiers. They've been using their proxies throughout the region to foment terrorism. So President Trump has been very clear. We could not allow Iran to become a nuclear power. They were getting too close. They simply would not listen to him. They wouldn't give it up. They could have given this up years ago. Obviously, they wanted to be a nuclear power. We could.
You know, with all the threats that America kept making to them, they saw that just talking. They're not going to do anything. They just try to put fear by putting words and sending letters. And finally, Trump to do something about it. Man, we are in good foot. We're in a good place.
Could not allow them to do so. So I support President Trump's action in this case. Again, really appreciate the fabulous actions on the part of the U.S. military. Hopefully this is a new day dawning in terms of peace in the Middle East.
Some of your colleagues in Congress were surprised by the Saturday night attack on these nuclear sites. Democrats are complaining that they were not alerted. What is your reaction to that, and what can we expect?
Look at the Democrats. If the Democrats would have been alerted, one of them would have snitched to Iran and let them know what's coming and just mess up the whole plans. So what are we talking about here? Trump is trying to do this and not put Americans in trouble or go ahead and bomb with the fear that they know what's coming and might protect themselves. So they need to shut up. This needed to happen.
Well, I don't know how anybody could have been surprised at this. I think President Trump certainly telegraphed it. He said he was going to make his decision in a couple of weeks. I certainly understand why President Trump would not share that information with the Democrats in Congress. And again, the operational security is just so crucial to protect our servicemen and women. Yeah. I didn't need notice. I've been saying for over a week, it'll be the president's decision. I will support that decision because we cannot allow Iran, the largest state sponsor of terror, to become a nuclear power. And that's what they wanted to be.
you've got Democrats talking about ramifications for President Trump, even as the leadership in the Senate Majority Leader John Thune said that this was the right move. Lindsey Graham posting they deserved it. Well done. What are you expecting from your Democrat colleagues?
I mean, even AOC already talking about we need to impeach Trump. Like he's trying to get us to war. These Democrats are like the dumbest group we ever had. All they want to do is impeach Trump for whatever reason. He is the president, the commander, the CEO, commander of the biggest military unit. So he could do what he got to do. Come on now. He's not getting impeached.
Oh, they'll scream about it, but there's nothing they can really do. Again, President Trump has his Article 2 powers as commander-in-chief. He exercised those. I think he exercised them wisely. And one thing that's important to point out, Maria, we're not at war with the Iranian people. You know, we support the Iranian people. They don't like being under the dictatorial thumb of such a brutal regime. I hope they take this opportunity of the regime's weakness to rise up and establish a more Democrat, Western-leaning, prosperous Iran. That's always been available to the Ayatollahs. They simply refused because they want to become a nuclear power. Maybe now that will be a possibility. But again, we have no beef with the Iranian people. This is about a regime that wants to destroy and eliminate Israel and destroy the great state in America.
Senator,
we don't want to start a forever war. We made a statement, told them to just take it and shut up. Let's see how they reply.
You have been pushing back on the president's big, beautiful bill in the Senate, saying the Senate needs more time to debate spending cuts. You told me on Friday that it's much more realistic to expect that the bill gets over the finish line in the Senate before the August recess because you want to cut more spending. You were worried about debt and deficits. Does this change anything for you, knowing that we are now looking at a world where our adversaries are on the march?
No, if anything, it just strengthens my resolve. I mean, how do we expect to defend this nation if we're mortgaging its future, if we're bankrupting it? And so the main numbers people need to look at, because there's a lot of scores being thrown around, is, prior to COVID, our average deficit was $660 billion. Then we had COVID, and then President Biden and the Democrats, rather than come back down to a more reasonable level, they averaged deficits of $1.9 trillion. You look at the current CBO projection that everything's scored against, we're projecting $21.1 trillion in 10-year deficits. That's $2.1 trillion a year. They score the OBBB at 24.1. Even the White House's best scenario is at 18.6 trillion, so just under $1.9 trillion a year. Again, I appreciate what the House has done. I really don't have a beef with what they've done. It's just inadequate to the enormity of the problem. So that's all I've been pointing out, is we have to look at we have to admit we've got this enormous problem, the big mess the Democrats left for us on the border with this massive deficit. We can't accept it as a new normal. And I've been working very cooperatively with the White House. There's no acrimony here. We all want to achieve the same goal. It's just very difficult to clean up the enormous mess that Biden and the Democrats left us.
How about one step at a time? How about taking all the great things that the bill brings and that we need, all the positive things that the bill has? So therefore, let's move forward with it. And then any problems, we could deal with it later. So one thing at a time. Let's first get rid of the problems that the bill is going to address, is going to take care of, and then we deal with the other things.
Do you expect the president's agenda to cross the finish line this summer? Will the bill pass?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, listen, it's been in the Senate court a couple of weeks. The parliamentarians already chipping away at what spending cuts the House we're able to pass. Again, we need to lay out, here's the problem. President Trump, I've got a great video showing him saying that we're going to balance the budget. A tweet that he said we have a spending problem, not a revenue problem. We have a spending problem.
All right, let me pause it right there. But you know what? I got to believe that Trump is doing the right thing. Hold on. We need to pass this bill, all right? Once we pass the bill, then we deal with the other problems in terms of balancing the budget. If anybody could do it, it's Trump, because he's not making any money out of this. The man is being honest. It almost feels like all the other politicians, everything they do is to get a couple of dollars in their pockets. Like they have to. These people are smart. They know how to do it, how to get government money sent to them and their people. And it's so easy to buy people off with money. You give people a couple millions, and they'll do anything you ask them to. But Trump is already a billionaire. He already got the money. So everything that he's doing is actually to help the country. Unbelievable. Nobody believes it. But now that they see that promises made are promises kept, I don't know, man. I believe Trump more and more. Everything that he said he was going to do, he's actually getting done. So there's a Iran deal. He said he was going to do it, gave them a promise or gave them a warning that didn't come through. And so he destroyed the facility. No surprises. What other things he said? He's going to try to budget. He's going to fix the budget. Let's see. The man only got started. So you got to give him a little bit of time. Nothing happens overnight. But eventually it does happen. All the illegals being deported, he already started. It is the right thing to do. And all the people that are going against ICE, got to stop it, especially if you're an American. And most people agree with Trump. So they've seen that more and more in the studies. And anyway, if you're still watching that Sunday morning with Maria Bartiromo, give the video a thumbs up. Let's try to get the voice out to more and more people. The fact that we live in an historic age in life. Finally, a president that's coming through with his promises. Promises made, promises kept. Need to say no more than that. All right? Be sure to give this video a thumbs up. My name is Noel, here at Fisticuffed and Verbal on Life, just trying to make people aware that we're watching like a real life movie. With Trump, the man is not scared to talk to the camera. He knows how to do it. He knows how to send threats without telegraphing what's really going to happen. No snitching. That operation was amazing because nobody saw it coming. Nobody knew. The planes went in there, carried through, blowing up facilities, and came back. By the time they got back, that's when they realized they got hit. That's perfect execution. And it just goes to show that Americans can do it. We have the capability. Because Iran on the other side of the world, insane. It feels like so far ahead. They had to send in ships, and the planes on the ships flying in, bombing, and getting out quick enough. And bombs that work. Those bombs specifically made to destroy those facilities. Come on now. Who else got the capability of doing that? And not only that, but I think this action and everything Trump is doing is going to get more people to volunteer for the army. I had a friend saying that more people volunteering for the army just shows that we're heading in a recession. But you know what? It's an intellectual talking. I disagree with that. People are joining the army because they see the benefit and how it's helping the country overall. So everybody got to put in their time, put in their work, and help this country. With this channel, I'm spreading the word and being able to speak my mind without being scared of being canceled. Hopefully my channel won't get canceled. It looks like it won't. I'm going to keep bringing videos and giving you guys information about how great Trump is doing. Now, my internet connection is not that good. I got to go deal with the fam and continue to create more videos. I want to try to make another one later on today. I got to go deal with the wife. I don't have a wife. Yeah, I'm still going through divorce proceedings. One message I want to put out that got nothing to do with the whole Trump operation is that don't ever get married. Marriage is the worst thing that ever happened to me. I'm battling, trying to get kicked out of my house, not to lose my car. And that's my fight. It is what it is. So let's just pray that everything's going to work out. With that said, see you guys in the next video. My name is Noel, here battling MS, but staying strong and hopeful. Before you go anywhere, give the video a thumbs up and a like. And I'll see you guys later on today. Happy Sunday. Peace.